What if Britain's most famous ancient sites weren't isolated monuments at all, but components of a single planetary system stretched across the entire landscape? Today, I'm joined by David Kenworthy, and we're going to be discussing his theory about the monuments that create a spine along the centre of Britain. So, hi, David.
Hi, Melissa. Nice to talk to you again.
Really nice to see you again. So, David, just back from Egypt, aren't you?
I am indeed, yeah. I had a fantastic trip to Egypt for 10 days, 7 days on the Nile on a cruise, and we went to see the Great Pyramid 3 days in Cairo. So, tremendous. I
Yeah,
haven't from it yet.
that sounds fab. Okay, so let's talk about your discovery of how the monuments that make up the spine through the centre of Britain are linked to planets.
Yeah, it's quite a story. It was 12 years ago when I got involved with Professor Thom and his 3 books. And I got contacted by this guy called Bill Wilkinson, who I was right in that I suspected that the imperial system was being used because Tom's megalithic yard was 2.72 imperial feet.
Yeah.
And it expressed intention in that design because it's 16 times 17. Now, Bill was identifying connections between megalithic sites. And in Tom's first book on page 47, he identifies these sites down the spine of the UK. So he's got the Brodgar Ring, he's got Avebury, and he's got Stonehenge. And they're all in megalithic yards, these sites. So I thought, after Bill had showed me what he'd been doing and explained to me how to use Google Earth, the first thing I looked for was a connection between these sites. And I found it. And it's an astonishing connection. And it goes on to go through Old Sarum. So that was my starting point. I had this line from the Brodgar Ring down to Old Sarum, and it went straight to the centre of Old Sarum. And I was thinking, this is absolutely incredible, you know. And that was the reason I wrote my second book, which I called The Answer. But over time, over many years, this line has developed into a bit of a monster. It's got bigger and bigger and bigger, and now I've got 4 lines in it coming from the Orkneys, and they focus on a focal point at Hengistbury Head on the south coast of the UK. And in that design, I've had a lot of researchers who've looked at it and made suggestions. And one of the ones that was made was by you. And that was for Mercury, where planet Mercury is. So,
I love Mercury.
So that site, I gave it special attention because there are sort of 2 circles on the landscape. And I wondered if they were there using LiDAR. So I did a LiDAR investigation of that site. And I found 2 circles, not exactly where I was expecting them, just a little bit to the north, on a hillside to the north. And there were these 2 circles the same size, identified by what appears to be 2 standing stones, small standing stones in the field. And the line from Silbury Hill down to Mont Saint-Michel goes straight through between the 2 circles, which can't be a coincidence, I don't think.
It sounds very strange. So you're talking about Orkneys up north, Mont Saint-Michel down in France?
And we're going down to the Tumulus Saint-Michel as well. So we go into the area that Howard Crowhurst has done so much work on. So this model is huge. I mean, it's colossal. And another researcher has identified Mercury as well. That was Charles Magna. So from this being sort of an idea, it's gone into something quite huge in that the theory is that I've identified the solar system laid out on Salisbury Plain. And not only is it not a geodetic model, it's heliocentric, and it's based on Old Sarum. Old Sarum, as the name suggests, is connected to the sun. because the Saros, S-A-R, or Saros, is the ancient eclipse period that we've already talked about. So I can start by going through the number of sites in this model, because there are 24 of them.
Right. Which is a great number to start with.
And I'll say thank you in advance to all the other people that have helped me with this this work, because there are a lot of people, too many to mention, really. So we start up in the Orkneys.
Okay.
And we start at the Ringerbucken. And there are 4 sites on the Orkneys that the lines all start from on Google Earth. There's the Ringerbucken, the Brodgar Ring, Stone Circle, and Maeshowe. And when you drag a line from these sites down the UK, you've no idea, you've got no control over where that line is going to land. So this is all down to the incredible skill of the designers of Google Earth that this model is working. And the focal point that we're dragging these lines to is the spit at Hengistbury Head on the south coast. And that is an ancient megalithic area. There are plenty of megalithic remains in that area. And it was obviously a trading post, I would say, a trading centre, probably a harbour down there that brought imports into the UK. And we know across the UK, many items from Egypt have been found, many beads and other items, necklaces and things have been found in Europe that have been traded from Egypt. So that is the whole basis of the theory. So I very briefly, I can go through the sites if you like.
Absolutely, yeah. So just to say, so up in Orkney, those 4 sites that you just said, they're on sort of a similar latitude and they're quite close together.
Yeah, and what they do is when you drag these lines, the lines are almost equidistant as you travel south. Now they travel down to a point, but when they go through Old Sarum, they're still separated. When they go through Avebury, they're still separated. And we can see that in the model because they go right through the middle of Avebury and they go right, as they get narrower, when they move down south towards Old Sarum, they go right through the centre of Old Sarum. I did a search this morning on Old Sarum to find out if it was a megalithic site, and AI tells me definitely that it isn't. So AI needs to get its act together, I say.
I think so too. I think, like, if nothing else, just on that point, yeah.
Right. So I'll go through the sites then. So the first 4 that I've mentioned, and the lines next hit Avebury. And the 4 lines go through the centre of Avebury, equally spaced. They miss Silbury Hill by a whisker. And I think there's an astronomical reason for that. And they go through the West Kennet Long Barrow. Now, these sites are prima sites, aren't they? They're the best megalithic sites that we've got in the UK. It's not like there's any secondary sites that were these are the prime megalithic sites. Now, the next one that we go to is the Alton Barnes White Horse, and there's a bull barrow next to it, and the lines go through there. Now, the White Horse is not supposed to be megalithic, but we do know that the megalithic people did put white horses on the landscape. So there's every possibility that there was a white horse there going back aeons. And the next one is it's a Romanized camp called Casterly Camp, and the lines go through Casterly Camp. And when you look at the shape of Casterly Camp on the landscape, it doesn't look like a Roman camp because they're normally regular shapes. I think the Romans probably took it over as a sort of staging post that they could use that was already in use by the people that were living on the island at the time when the Romans were here. And then the next one is an absolute killer site for me. This is the Greater Cursus. Now, this site is the one that when I went down to Stonehenge the first time, I was just absolutely crazy about this thing because I couldn't believe it when I saw it. And they go right through almost the centre of the Greater Cursus, which is 1 3/4 miles long. So you could say, well,
it's really long.
It's that big. And then they just missed Stonehenge again. There's an astronomical reason for that, I believe, as well. They go through what's called Great Durnford, which is where you've suggested that Mercury is, down to Old Sarum, which I believe represents the sun. And I believe that this is the megalithic capital of the UK and probably Europe. I think probably this was a centre where everyone assembled for the great festivals that they must have had at the time.
Yeah.
And then we finished down at Hengistbury Head, and there are minor sites on Salisbury Plain between Old Sarum and Hengistbury Head that you can find if you go on to LiDAR. But I've not included them because I think 14 sites is more than enough to suggest that this is a deliberate design by the designers. There's no question here. And where it leaves our archaeologists, I have no idea. Because this is exactly what Professor Thom said that they were capable of doing. And it proves beyond any reasonable doubt, without using his megalithic yard, that what he was saying about these people was absolutely true. This was a high civilization, way beyond what we can imagine. And possibly in many ways, that these people were more intelligent than we are in our time. Because
that's what Thom said, isn't it?
He did. He said that in terms of sheer intelligence and brain power, these people were our superiors. And he said that in a documentary that you can find on the internet, on YouTube. And so there we are. Now, the second line, which is just one line, well, I think these second and third lines are sort of astronomical alignments that only take place at certain times that these people were very keen on and very conscious of. And they're showing alignments that occur using the planets that orbit outside the Earth, not inside.
Yeah.
So we're looking at
Mercury and Venus.
Yeah, we're looking at no, we're looking at Saturn. And
oh right, so the boundary, almost.
Yeah, we're going all the way to Saturn, which I think we find in France, and Jupiter, I think, could be Mont Saint-Michel, and this idea that there were planetary configurations using these sites is not mine. It's not my original idea. There are several. I've got one here, The Mundane System, in this book by Jean-Michel Astro, A Little History of Astroarchaeology. It's on page 16. And there's a mundane...
I have a copy, but I've left it in another room. But that's a great book. Anyone interested in this?
Yeah. And in this one, it's not a heliocentric system. It's a geocentric system. It's got Silbury Hill as the Earth in this one, but it's the same idea that these people were obsessed with looking at the heavens, and if we can look at the model now and go through it, we can show just how accurate these lines are.
Yeah. So I'll share my screen with Google Earth.
Okay. I'd just like to say thank you for all the work you've done on this on my behalf.
Oh no, I'm delighted. And it was just
putting this model together.
No, it's no problem at all. It's just so interesting to come back to it again and again and just see it. So what I've done is I've just got the sites that we're talking about today on Google Earth, and it just looks so stark. I mean, there's really no doubt that these really important sites are aligned. So it's very impressive.
Yeah.
And as to the reason, well, I don't know. As to the symbolism, all these things are up to you to interpret. So we're starting with Stonehenge here, just to give us some grounding, if you like, and then I'll just zoom out, and we'll go and have a quick look at the entire line. Just, I was going to say a bird's eye view. You'd want to be a very, very
high up
bird. Yeah. So I've just extended your line down to Mont Saint-Michel, and we're going up to the Orkneys now.
Yeah.
And I'll just zoom in here.
And I think what I don't need to talk about numbers in this presentation, but one number that I just will mention that Dennis Payne pointed out to me, and I've mentioned in one of our previous videos, that the distance between Brodgar and the spit at Hengistbury Head is 30,000 arc seconds on Google Earth. And I don't think, based on what I understand about these megalithic people and their capabilities, I don't think that's a chance at all.
That is very interesting. So can you just explain what that would suggest in terms of their positioning and the size of the Earth?
Well, if you multiply that by 43.2, which is a well-known number to meteorologists, it gives the Earth's circumference as 29,001.5 miles, which it is.
Yeah, so it's a particular division of the Earth's size,
yes,
which is very precise.
An exact, because there are 129,600 arc seconds in the Earth's circumference, and this line is 30,000 of them. So it's a scientific measure.
Yeah.
And this is
it would suggest that this has solid scientific background.
Yeah, it's exactly what Tom was saying. And I mean, these people were advanced mathematicians. They understood exactly what they were doing. They were manipulating pi, various versions of pi. And Tom talks about that in his book right away. So if we go to the sites on the 4 sites on the Orkneys, we can work our way.
Yeah. Okay, so just to say, the Ring of Buchan, that's maybe a less well-known site. These ones are very well-known, aren't they? Maeshowe and Stonehenge.
You can see how far apart the lines are there.
They're very equally spaced, aren't they? Well, they seem to be.
And what Professor Thom said about the Brodgar Ring is that's the best megalithic astronomical observatory in the UK. And he demonstrates exactly how they predicted eclipses there. At the Brodgar Ring, that's the Maeshowe, isn't it?
Maeshowe, yeah.
So if we go to the ring, we can see exactly.
This gives an impression as well with the photo. Because it's very difficult to get to Orkney, isn't it?
Well, again, that leads into their ability as mariners, doesn't it? You can't get from the mainland to the Orkneys without a huge amount of planning. If you're gonna sail to the Orkneys, you need to know the tide tables. You need to know when the high tides are. You need to know what the best time is. And because the tides are so powerful there, you've got a limited amount of sailing time. And having been to Egypt and seen the solar boat and seen how it's designed, that is exactly the kind of boat that you would expect them to have been using to get across this very, very difficult stretch of water. And I reckon that those boats could have been sailed across there in about 7 or 8 hours, maybe with 24 oarsmen. And when the conditions were right and the right prevailing winds were available, they would have been able to sail a lot of that way. So the guys wouldn't have been stretching themselves all the time rowing. There were periods when they wouldn't need to row. And these people were sailing all around the UK, and they were sailing up to the Shetlands, which tells us that, all the megalithic monuments on the Shetlands, they knew what they were doing. They were a very civilized and advanced civilization. And also, when you get to the Shetlands, at that particular time, the moon was circumpolar. And Tom stresses this. He says, imagine what it would have been like to be an apprentice working at Stonehenge, learning about all the planets and their movements and learning about how the moon works. Imagine that, and then being transferred up to the Orkneys or to the Shetlands to observe a circumpolar moon. and what impression that would have had on a novice at that particular time. It's fantastic. So we move down to Avebury, and we can look at the lines going through Avebury.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just go down, just following the lines so that we can get a sense of the progression. So there's actually quite a long distance to go, and then we'll just zoom in on Avebury here. So they have a concentration.
I meant to mention someone about the Orkneys. There's a guy called Sigurd Bowery. He's an Orcadian, and he's got a theory about the ring of Brodgar, the Brodgar ring, and the Stennis Stone Circle. If you look at the way they're laid out, he reckons they represent Orion's belt.
Let's just go back to it actually, just for that, because that's really interesting. So this is echoing the Hancock-Burwell theory, the Orion correlation.
Yeah.
So this would be about the arrangement of these three sites, right?
Yeah. And Larry Paul also goes with this. I know Larry went up there, and he was very taken by Maeshowe, but he subscribes to this theory of Sigurd Toweries. And Sigurd Towery is an Orcadian. He comes from the Orkneys, which makes it, to me, I love that kind of connection, you know.
Yeah.
He's living.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And he's feeling that wonderful idea that you go out at night and you watch these rising stars. It's wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to visit. I've actually looked into it, but it's not easy, even today. It's still not an easy journey.
It's relatively easy once, and it's a tremendous journey, because you go past the Old Man of Hoy,
right?
And that is such a spectacular piece of scenery, and it's really strange when you get there, because there are no trees. There are hardly any trees at all, so it's quite a strange landscape.
Yeah.
Well, the roads are all straight, so that's some kind of strange planning. I think that comes from the war.
Right.
It's really weird to get on the roads because they're all dead straight.
That sounds really. Just for that, I'd love to go. Wait, let's go down to Avebury.
Yeah.
So we're going all the way back down to southern England, and here we are. So those four lines that you've drawn from those four sites,
you go right
through. So I'll just make that a little bit bigger.
So what does that tell
you? Now they've disappeared. Hang on, I have to zoom back out again. It's just with long distance lines like this, yeah.
So what does that tell us about what these people were doing, you know? This is Google Earth that's given us this evidence. And there's no explanation for this from our archaeologists. They're miles away from what Professor Thom said. They really burned their boats with Thom. They could have sat on the fence and waited for more evidence, but they're so adamant that Thom was wrong when he plainly wasn't. They've backed themselves into a corner, really, because how are they going to explain this, and how are they going to hide it? It's too obvious to be hidden. It's got to be talked about. People have got to try and give us an explanation as to why this is happening. I mean, I've got my own explanations, but you know, they may.
Well, I guess it's all about how you view the people who created these monuments, what opinion you have of them, and what they're capable of. And I suppose a lot of people just think that they're very limited in their scope, even though these sites have survived thousands of years. They're not exactly putting them on a pedestal. So,
well, for me, there's this problem of Thom is that there's evidence there, but it's never been strong enough to prove that he was right. It's almost we're on the verge of it now, and this is probably tipping us over the edge, this discovery. But it remains to be seen what impact it'll have over time, whether anybody will take it seriously, or whether it'll just be pushed under the carpet like the rest of Thom's work has been. So I'm hoping that won't happen, but let's see. So if we go down, I think the next most effective site is Old Sarum. If we go and look at Old Sarum.
Well, let's just quickly show Silbury Hill and West Kennet, because he mentioned them.
Kennet, yeah. Well, there's Silbury Hill, and West Kennet is just a bit lower down. And around the West Kennet Long Barrow, don't they? Two go through it, I think, and one on either side.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's incredible, isn't it? And then there's Casterly Camp.
That's right. So let's go down a bit further. So sometimes when the landscape changes, your White Horse as well, The lines disappear a little bit because I'm zoomed in so much.
With the white horse, doesn't it?
Yeah. Probably should have zoomed out a bit. Here we are, Casterly Camp.
Yeah, and you can see the shape of Casterly Camp there.
This is it here, isn't it?
It's a very strange shape, and it's the same shape as that when you go into LiDAR.
Okay. So that is the original outline, you think? And
when you see the bank round it, you can see it's a megalithic design. It's not a Roman design. They've just hijacked it.
Yeah.
And you know, the lines go right through it. Now I can talk about it
so you can see it,
because this is a model in the Saint-Michel book, and they're saying that Casterly Camp represents Saturn.
Okay.
In this geodetic model.
Yeah.
Silbury Hill. So they're on the same lines as this, aren't they?
Yeah.
But they haven't got the benefit of Google Earth.
That's true. So this is the new generation. The Google Earth generation. Okay, moving slightly down, we have, so I left those sites in on the side just for interest.
We're going to the Greater Cursus, aren't we?
Yeah, so here's the Cursus stuff. There's a pin here. Actually, it doesn't really do justice to how big it is. You were saying how big it is.
Yeah, it's 1 and 3.
It runs all the way from here to here, I think.
And I've got, I can talk about this. Well, I can talk about somebody else's work on this because I've got it on my computer. And it's a paper by 2 Czech professors. And they are called, wow, it's a big paper. I'm trying to get back to the top of it. They're called Pavel Kalender and Eva Kalendova. And they wrote this paper quite a while back. And they say, we analysed in the paper the possible purpose of the Great Cursus in the Stonehenge area. We analysed the sun and moon and found that the borderlines of the Great Cursus could help to determine the mutual position of the 3 bodies, Earth, Sun and Moon, which repeats once per Saros at approximately 18 years. The moonrise in the beginning of Saros, when the angle between the moon's orbit and equator is the lowest, was in the direction of the Great Cursus during the first and last quarters of the moon. Therefore, the people who built the Stonehenge could predict the solar or lunar eclipse 7 or 21 days in advance. The Stonehenge itself, which is built 5 years after the Great Cursus, seems to be, from the point of view, only a calculator of Saros cycle, heritage place and superstructure of the Great Cursus. So they're saying that Stonehenge is a repository of the information, which goes along with the 2 professors who identified the Aubrey circle as an eclipse prediction device. So the whole thing falls together very nicely, doesn't it?
This is based on the number of points around the circle that functions perhaps as an analog computer, right?
56 points. And I've seen archaeologists come on TV and say the reason there are 56 stones around the Aubrey circle, the 56 markers around the Aubrey, is because there is. You know, I mean, what can you say about a comment like that? He said there's no other reason, there's just 56 markers. There's no other for it. And really should know better because he's quite an advanced archaeologist who knows a lot.
Yeah. Well, Robin Heath actually has a really good chapter on that particular aspect, you know, the 56 points in the Lost Science of Measuring the Earth, you know, the book he co-wrote with Jean-Michel.
Yeah, I've got it,
yeah. And he demonstrates that, I mean, I suppose 28 is a minimum, but 56 would be the perfect number for calculating.
Yeah, because it's the day and night of the lunar month, isn't it? It's 28 days and 28 nights. So
yeah, and 28 is key.
Tom said they were using 22/7, so if you multiply that by 22/7, you get 1760, which is the number of cubits in the Great Pyramid.
Yeah, well, we come back
You
to Egypt about like every 10 minutes, I think, so far. Always back to Egypt. So this cursus is very, very long, and the lines, I should say, just disregard these two lines, they're for later. But what we're looking at now is these 4 lines that you've just drawn.
Yeah.
Down from the Orkneys to Hengistbury Head, so they're converging on Hengistbury Head, and this is the cursus here, so they're going right
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah. And then we're coming down past Stonehenge. You can see we're missing it by a whisker.
Yeah.
When you can,
but the Stonehenge landscape is full of things. I mean, that's probably just the tip of the iceberg.
well,
you know, the cursus in this. And...
I need to go on to Stefan Maeder now, don't I? Because Stefan has talked about this landscape and what it all represents. And Stefan can say to his colleagues when he sees this model, he said, look at this, guys. How do you explain this?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd like to know what our archaeologists are going to say about this. Because it changes so much. I mean, we see videos on YouTube saying this changes everything. And then when you watch them, it doesn't change anything at all. Well, I actually think that this does change the way that we should be regarding these people.
Oh, I agree. So let's follow the line down. So now, here are the two circles, and then Ogbury camp that you mentioned earlier.
You can see why you selected that to represent Mercury, and see the field above the 2 circles. That's where the 2 hidden circles are. And if you go into the right mode, that's one of the secondary lines, that blue one. If you go into the right mode on Google Earth, the right time mode, you'll find those 2 circles.
Let me see. We'll go back in time a bit, will we? Hang on. What have I done? Oh, here we are. I couldn't remember how to do it. That's 2001. I don't know how far back to go.
Just keep until you find them.
I think, are we looking for a dry year? Is that what we're looking for?
Yeah.
Before? Hang on a second.
Green, but they stand out. The circles really stand out when you do it.
Let me just go back to here, because I've gone too far back and it's not actually very...
If you just go back one step, go forward one step at a time.
Like Groundhog Day, we're stuck on the same day. That's it, we can't get out.
It doesn't matter, then we can move on.
Oh, here we are. Maybe here. Oh, I don't know.
If you get a bit closer. If you move forward slightly.
Are they somewhere?
2 dots. They're the 2 stones, I think. Can you see those?
You see?
There's one and there's the other. Now,
yeah, I can see those 2 dots, yeah.
On the right time frame, 2 circles will appear around those dots.
Let's have
if you change the time frame.
Oh, this is nice and dry.
Yeah, it's not that one.
No.
I think it's green. No.
No, someone's being very creative in this field.
No, clouds.
It's going to come.
It is.
There's more clouds. It must have been very cloudy for a few years. Nope.
One. I think we're getting close now.
Oh, yes.
Look at that.
This is it. So 2017.
Isn't that amazing? And doesn't that show what a powerful tool Google Earth is?
Oh, I know. I know.
Just look at that. That is incredible. And funnily enough, when you go on LiDAR, you can only see one of these circles. You can't see 2 of them. Okay. So I'm just wondering if that's showing us more than LiDAR is actually showing us. Because look at mine, it's going right between them.
Yeah.
And that's your suggestion. So well played, Melissa.
Well, it's your creation. And then here so it's kind of echoing this weird double circle feature that we have here. It's like a spiral. It's almost like Mercury retrograde.
Well, I think that across the valley, there's a camp called
yeah, so it's just over here.
Yeah, Ogbury camp. That's it there. Ogbury camp. Now that is part of the model. And Og can represent a number, I think, the word Og.
Right. Very difficult to see on the ground. I'm sure probably on the ground I've never been, but it probably doesn't seem all that remarkable. But when you see it in the context of these sites, I'm just zooming out so you can see the lines coming down.
Yeah.
And then the Great Downford site, and then that's the field we were looking at just there.
Yeah. So now we go down to Old Sarum.
All right. This is your favourite?
Well, this is just unbelievable.
I mean, it really is now at this stage. I mean, it was kind of cool when we got to Stonehenge, but this now, it's like...
This is ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Accurate, that. And AI says it's not a megalithic site. Of course it's a megalithic site. It couldn't be more megalithic if it tried. And now I need to talk about an archaeologist that I'm a big fan of.
Right.
Bill Moffat. He's done a video called Hill of Deep Time about Old Sarum. Mm-hmm. He's the archaeologist in charge of the current work that's going on at Old Sarum and its surroundings. And he's very aware of how significant Old Sarum is. And he talks with real passion about Old Sarum.
Yeah.
And I advise anybody who sees this to go and watch Bill Moffat's video because it's brilliant.
Yeah, I have actually on your recommendation. It was really good.
Mm. So yeah, and then we go down to the final.
I was reading, sorry to interrupt, David, that Old Sarum was not listed in the Doomsday Book. Possibly you could interpret that as being because it didn't belong to anyone. It was like it wasn't like it was so important. It wasn't worth attributing to someone's ownership. It was just I don't know. Apparently, yeah. I mean, it was a really important site, and at the time of the Normans, it had a cathedral on it. Well, yes. It had some kind of church on it.
And a cathedral, and of course, the theory is that the centre of Old Sarum is a Norman motte.
Mm.
It's a motte and bailey castle, and you see a lot about this when you go to Lincoln Castle. You see a motte in the grounds of the grounds of the castle. One of the castle walls is built over a motte. Mm-hmm. Now these mottes were all megalithic, I think. Mm-hmm. They're all hills.
I think when you look at the context of this alignment and all the other sites, I just wanted to show the outline of this church here, the church that used to be there.
You can see it so well, can't you?
Yeah. And then that was transferred down to
But look
Salisbury.
at the 4 lines. You can't argue with this, can you?
I know.
And the interesting thing is that Old Sarum is a fixed site. And Hengistbury Head, I think you could also say, is a fixed site. So all the other sites that we've seen are not fixed. They've been placed in relation to these 2 sites. Mm-hmm. So somebody in prehistory was so familiar with the layout of the UK and what was going on in the heavens that they put together this model based on the connection between Hengistbury Head and Old Sarum. And it also, they obviously planned Hengistbury Head to represent Mars. And when you look at the circle around Hengistbury Head from Old Sarum, it goes outside Avebury. So it's a bigger orbit than the Earth going around Old Sarum, Avebury going around Old Sarum, which then you can say represents Mars. That's where I got my idea from.
Okay.
But if we go down to Hengistbury Head now.
Okay. So here we are. It's not that far. Just here.
Yeah. If you zoom in, and it looks like there's 1 line there, but that's actually the 4 lines converging.
Yeah.
So there are 4 lines there on Hengistbury Head, and there's a spit at Hengistbury Head, and you've got your lines just not quite converging on the spit, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't affect anything. It's the final site, and we don't know what was there on the landscape. I've had a look using LiDAR, but it's not really brought anything up. But there are in the vicinity there are megalithic sites, mm-hmm. and there are megalithic mounds on the hillside at the side. So there's no doubt about that being a megalithic site. Mm-hmm. So that's the first line, and then the second line.
Now, what site do you want to go back up to then?
Well, we go back up now to Silbury Hill.
All right, I'm actually just going to click on that. Okay, so here we go. So we've got the enigmatic Silbury Hills, big conical-shaped monument.
Right, and I'll just tell you the sites that this line goes through. It goes through Silbury Hill, it goes through the Stonehenge Greater Cursus, it goes through the Sarsens, it goes through the Great Durnford Hidden Double Circles, it goes through the Bremore Mismaze, an 800-year-old site, possibly older. It goes through the Ile de Tombelan and Mont Saint-Michel.
Incredible. So this is the site that you mentioned. I just didn't know this site at all, and it goes right through it.
Is that Mismo?
Yes.
I don't know what that is. I only found that recently, and I've been looking at these lines to see if there are, and I looked it up on
We're in France now.
I looked it up and found that it was an 800-year-old site, possibly older. So I include, and then we go to Tombelan.
Yes, and here we are. So the famous Mont Saint-Michel, and Tombelan, which is a tiny little island, but it's historically significant. King Arthur was there. I think he tried to rescue a poor girl.
In my theory, it's representing Jupiter. And there's another Mont Saint-Michel or St. Michael's Mount, and they're two are joined because they're both equidistant from Stonehenge,
which I think is argument enough to link them to the megalithic world. And then this line comes in, but that the equidistance between them. So here it is. I just put it in. I didn't link with the line, but these two sites, you can test this at home. Anyone watching? These two sites are exactly the same distance from Stonehenge, and you can include as well the cathedral at Rouen, which is also equidistant.
And I think when we first got together talking about this stuff, I'd just been to Rouen Cathedral, and you mentioned what a coincidence it was that you discovered that the line went through Rouen Cathedral as well.
Yeah, I remember. And I've actually never been to all these places I need to go to. I've definitely been to Old Sarum because I remember feeling absolutely frozen. It was such a cold place, even in summer. And apparently that's the official reason why they decided to decamp from Old Sarum, take the cathedral with them, and go down to Salisbury, because on the hill it was so cold, and also they didn't have running water or something. So I would totally do the same.
Yeah, but it's the most amazing structure. The first time I saw it, I couldn't believe it, because I had this idea of what these people were doing, and when I saw that site, it had everything that I would have expected. And I've got this idea that when you look at it from above, it looks like an eye, and I'm thinking that's deliberate design, because if you look at the mound in the middle of Old Sarum, it could be the moon covering the eyeball.
It does look like an eye for sure.
Yeah, and that's the pupil in the middle, and it's covered with the moon, because these mounds, I reckon, are representing. They're representing, like Professor Thom says, the result of scientific experiments to determine the moon's motion. He was calling these people scientists. And he said, we've got to bear in mind what tools they had available to them at the time.
Yeah.
But now we go on the second line.
Yeah, okay. So what side? We're going back to Stonehenge, I think, because it crosses through Stonehenge.
Yeah, we need to look at that, don't we? These two lines cross through the centre of Stonehenge.
Yeah, and then I'll follow them back out.
Yeah. This is a
massive... Here we go. So we're going through the centre of Stonehenge, pretty much.
They're touching the Sarsen circles. So these two lines are going through Stonehenge, and the second line goes from Marlborough Mound, which I again think Marlborough Mound represents the moon, and the distance between Silbury and Marlborough is very significant. And I think that these two mounds are again the remnants of a scientific experiment determines not only the motion of the moon, but determines how far the Earth travels as the moon rises. So
that's interesting. So it's basically, that would suggest that as the moon rises, it's being carefully watched and tracked.
Yeah, and they're working out how far the Earth travels when the moon rises.
Mm-hmm. So,
and they're laying it out. They're laying it out in arc seconds, and the distance between the two is 270 arc seconds between the two mounds.
Wow, another arc second measurement. That's impressive. So,
yeah.
So this definitely seems to point to a scientific knowledge of astronomy.
Yes.
Size of the Earth, which is really precise.
Yes.
And it does seem very surprising in the face of what is generally thought about these people, these builders. And then so your line goes from Marlborough Mound down to, you said Martin's Hill.
I've got to turn my page.
Okay. Sorry, I'm going ahead.
Marlborough Mount, Martinsell Hill Fort. That's very close to it. You can't really miss it, to be quite honest, because it's a huge hill fort. Really long, thin one.
And there's something there, Giant's Grave as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of megalithic. There's so much megalithic activity.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes through the Greater Cursus, of course, and then through the Stonehenge Sarsens, as we've seen.
So just to go back to here, we have the Cursus here, and then Stonehenge.
Yeah. And then we go down to the Isle of Herm, which is in the Channel Islands.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes through it. I didn't look for any megalithic connection. I just thought it was interesting that it went through that specific island, which I've been to Sark and I've been to Jersey, but I haven't been to that one. And it just nicks it, doesn't it, on the side of it?
Yeah.
And then it finishes. Oh no, there's another site that I found recently, which is definitely megalithic, and it's the Talloway site, the archaeological site Talloway, and that's got some very interesting archaeological finds.
Yeah, it looks really interesting. I
think it might have a visitors centre. I'm not sure.
Well, it's got something there, and you can see the ring here.
Yeah.
And there's something else there. And I'm sure this is part of it too.
We can't see the line going through it though, can we?
No, I've zoomed in too much now. Now, here we are. The line goes here.
Isn't it slightly, isn't it? Well, when I did my alignment, I used the most westerly point of Marlborough Mound and the most westerly point.
Yeah, I should have done that. Yeah.
And if you do that, it goes right through that site.
And I think
the reason why we have the most westerly points as well, because of the measurements, the transits of Saturn and of the moon.
Yeah.
So
I mean, what you've shown as well, bringing your 4 points in Orkney down to Hengistbury Head, is that the line doesn't have to be a tiny narrow thing like we have on Google Earth. It can be a corridor, can't it?
It can be a corridor, yeah, and you can look for sites in the corridor, can't you?
Yeah.
And also, there are loads more of these alignments that are waiting to be discovered by anybody that's interested in Google Earth. And built this model, these second two lines belong. The discovery of them belongs to Bill Wilkinson, which I can't mention Bill enough. He's done a video about this Tumulus Saint-Michel.
Yeah, I remember.
Lots of lines coming from the Tumulus Saint-Michel. And that leads us to Howard Crowhurst, because this is nearly next to his front door.
This is his territory.
Yeah. I mean, he only lives across the street, I think, from it's in the middle of a town, this place. And these sites in France are dated later than the megalithic sites in UK, because there's this idea that the megalith people gradually moved, and it took a long time to transition from France up to the UK and up to the Orkneys. But there's a new theory now coming from our archaeologists that we have to go top down. So you're moving the really intelligent people were up in the Orkneys, and then gradually it permeated south. But I don't believe that for a minute.
I think it's the same level of intelligence. And just to say, just as at Old Sarum, there's a church on top, or there was a church on Old Sarum, or a cathedral, but there's this tendency, I think that says a lot as well, that these sites were very special, and that in the Christian era, then they were repurposed, or just their lifespan was extended just by reappropriating them instead of destroying them.
And the other thing is that Stefan Maeder has done some work on the artifacts that were found in this tomb.
Yes.
And he's found these, what are they? These axe heads that potentially were found facing north-south.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot to be said as well. Oh, well, his work is fantastic. I'll put a link in the description, but his work is fantastic. He's also looked at the arrangement of because inside this hill there's a structure, and looking at the position of it and the shape of it, it's really interesting.
It's a tremendously important site.
Mm-hmm. And we have another, again, just that, like St. Michael's Mont and Mont Saint-Michel, we have a Saint-Michel. So again, this would suggest that there's some kind of continuation, that there's an understanding of what these sites were, and then in Christian times, St. Michael took over whatever divinity maybe was guarding them.
Yeah, well, I think that your work and your website covers all this. I mean, you've gone into this in much greater detail and with much more comprehensive understanding than I've got. I love to read your papers on all this, and the questions that you've made are really important, and they lead on to so much more work that's been done by other researchers as well that we're aware of.
Mm-hmm. Well, I always thought at the beginning that St. Michael was kind of somehow linked to Mercury, that there were quite a few things in common, but it could be more fluid than that. It might not be so simple, so there are other options, maybe other planets. Actually, that brings us to a question I wanted to ask you. So you've showed all these sites now, and there's no doubt that they're aligned. There's no doubt that they're linked, even though some of them are associated with completely different periods. For example, this one, Mont Saint-Michel, I know it was known that before the present structure on Mont Saint-Michel was built, that there was some kind of Celtic church and a round of monks, and there was something, but we don't really know what, and maybe there was a megalith there or some kind of structure, who knows. But we have to include it, don't we, because of this alignment and this connection to Stonehenge together with St. Michael's Mount.
Well, when you visit the two St. Michael's Mount, the one in France is just, it's almost like it's been designed. I hate to say this because I know the French are very sensitive to Walt Disney, but it does look like it's been designed by Walt Disney when you see it from a distance.
I know what you mean.
It's the most amazing sight. You couldn't be more perfect.
It's beautiful.
It's just breathtaking.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a very, very ancient, important site, and so's the other one in Cornwall. The fact they're equidistant from Stonehenge tells us one thing only, and that Stonehenge was placed there because the distance from each one was known, and also the distance from Old Sarum was known, and Stonehenge is exactly placed where it is for a reason.
And you can remind us of the distance between Stonehenge and Old Sarum.
6 exactly.
Yeah, 6 miles.
I've proved
amazing.
Paper in Google Earth. It's exactly 6 miles, and the line goes right through. The circumference goes right through the Sarsen stones.
Yeah, actually, I'll show that now.
I've not really pointed out what I think Stonehenge is in the model, really, but it represents Venus. And not only does the astronomy show us that, the metrology does as well.
Yeah, so they've got all these things working together. So the metrology being the distances between the places and how you're interpreting those distances. Yeah. So let's have a little look. Oh, kilometers. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Here we go. All right, 6 to the center, 6 miles. And And we know that the mile is ancient. It's definitely found in the old Indian texts, and it's 1,000 danushas. The word mile is meaning 1,000. So there's definitely potential there for a very old system of measure being put in place. But we said we wouldn't talk about numbers. So tell me about the planets in this case. So you've got this system going on.
We can talk about numbers now, I think, because we've not talked about numbers all the way through the model. And numbers are not needed in the model. It's Google Earth that's speaking model. And the 4 lines through Old Sarum just absolutely speak volumes to how badly these people have been misjudged, these megalithic people. And how Professor Thom's work needs to be brought out of cold storage and looked at by people who understand the mathematics that's involved in his work, because it's such a high level, it's beyond me. But to people at NASA, they'd be able to understand it. And I'm sure they'd be able to add a lot more to what we're saying about how these people were working out their eclipse cycles and metonic cycles and all the other cycles that they were obviously using.
Yeah. So we have to. So we don't have to take Tom's word for it. It's easy to see, if once you start looking at these sites, that they were observing the moon, the sun, and possibly the planets. But what we can take from Tom's work as a general statement, maybe, would you say, is just this idea, this belief that the people who built these sites were incredibly sophisticated?
Incredibly sophisticated. They could build incredible ships. They could obviously align sites along straight lines, regardless of the terrain and regardless of the distance apart, and regardless of how far apart. They understood that the Earth was a globe.
Yeah. And do you have a theory as to how they could have got a good idea of their latitude and their longitude, or how the distances were measured? Have you any idea?
I've got I've been looking at lots of books that have been written about these ideas, and some books that have been written about how incredibly sophisticated these people were.
Yeah.
And the one theory to me that stands out above all the others is this idea of shadow lengths. Using shadow lengths in a pole. And we know that the old people that went to measure had this long staff, the Ezekiel's reed, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes. And the 2 sticks that you often see on old figures.
And you plonk that in the ground, and then you sit back and measure the shadow lengths at noon and measure them on different days, and where you are, you know, the latitude and longitude.
Can you get the longitude from that, though, or is it just really the latitude?
I don't know. I read books that say you can, but personally, it's beyond my scope. I've taken this as far as I can.
To be continued in that case.
It's for other people to pick the mantle up on that. But now that we know that they could do it, it's up to other people to figure out how they did it. I think there are other people. My memory's so bad. But there's a guy. He's written a book. He's got this patent on his model. I can't remember.
Oh, Crichton.
Yeah, Crichton Miller.
Is it Crichton? Crichton, yeah.
And again, this is associated with relics from the Great Pyramid, I think, or the pyramids. And he's quite famous, actually, Crichton. He had a period where he was appearing on telly.
Very interesting.
Showing his model, and he's very keen on this idea of intensive trade in this particular prehistoric period. There was a lot more trade going on than we realise, and Berryman in his book says exactly the same thing, and a lot of the trade was going to China. So a lot of these numbers, and Berryman's numbers, are including Chinese measure. And I've actually been to the museum, the big museum
Giza, Cairo?
No, no, in China, in the main city the capital of China. I've
Okay.
been in their museum, and I've seen a 10-inch rule that looks longer than 10 inches. It looks like it could be a foot long, but it was in 10. It was divided into 10. No, not Peking, Beijing. I've
Beijing.
been to the museum. It's near Tiananmen Square,
Okay.
and it was a trip that we went on.
You've really got around, David. I
We
need to
went
do
to
the
the Terror of
same.
the Warriors, and that was a story in itself. But yeah, we managed to do that as well. But yeah, we
That
like to
sounds
travel
great.
around and see things. Me and Molly.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. So just one last word then, David, and we'll finish up here. So there's definitely a scientific element to all this, and these planets that are associated with the sites potentially could be purely from a scientific motivation. But do you think there's also a sense in which there's a symbolic layer, or there's a religious dimension, or how do you explain
I think
the rest, the stuff that's not just about observing the moon?
well, if you look at what goes on, what went on at Egypt, it's all based. The priests are in total control, and I'm sure it would have been the same in at Avebury. Imagine an eclipse happening, and the priest predicting the eclipse, and everybody turning up, and the eclipse happens.
Mm.
Or you come up, you come one night, and there's no eclipse because it's cloudy, and then someone from Scotland comes down and says, "Oh, it wasn't cloudy in Scotland. We saw the eclipse." You know, that kind of information would absolutely give the priests absolute control, wouldn't it? And you've got to imagine that these people were benevolent, because certainly it seems like the whole Egyptian system was based on making sure that everybody was fed and looked after, and that the pharaohs were great, but the gods were greater, and the gods are bigger in the designs, and
Yeah.
the gods are in control.
So that's interesting. So on the one hand, you have the sense of power that the people who understand these workings are creating for themselves, that they're maybe impressing the people. But on the other hand, there's a sense of humility that they consider themselves as just a small part of the cosmos, maybe.
That's very, very, very true. And there is a book that I've got up here on my bookshelf. It's called Avebury Cosmos.
Okay.
I can't remember
You have that.
the author, but he's a very good author. What's he called? Nicholas Mann.
Oh, I don't even have that. Oh my gosh.
Can you see that? Or you?
Yeah, I can see. That sounds like a great book. I think I'm going to have to look at that.
Avebury Cosmos, Nicholas Mann, and
Okay.
there's the Neolithic world of Avebury Henge, Silbury Hill, West Kennet Longbarrow, the Sanctuary, and Longstone's Cove. So this guy, I bought this book a long time ago, and it's as good as you can get. And he's done this kind of work, not using Google Earth, but he's found circles, huge circles near Avebury, with and lots and lots of place names around the circles. It's a fantastic book, and he does sort of mind healing work. So people that have got mind problems, he's into all that kind of sort of alternative therapy.
So that's another thing we haven't touched on today. These energy healing aspects that are associated with these sites. But that's another really interesting dimension.
He's had some experiences at Avebury where have felt this, this tingling sensation that there's some kind of presence there that you finger on what it is. He's had those kind of experiences there, and I think he lives quite nearby as well.
Okay. Well, that's a great recommendation. Well, that's a great place to maybe leave it there for today.
Yeah.
And then let's do another chat on all this, because you've got so much to share, David. So maybe we can meet again sometime soon.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'll do a video anytime. So
that sounds great. All right. Well, thank you so much, David.
Yeah. Cheers, Melissa. Thanks.